All right, yes, I did title this video something about why I'm bothered, why I'm a little bothered. There's just been so much going on. I feel the need to just let a little bit out and to sort of reflect on what's going on in the world at large, what's going on here where I live, and then sort of, I guess, framing it in a way so that people sort of understand why I'm so focused on health and fitness all the time, because that is really truly what keeps me sane when I look at all that's going on now, today, all the time. What really prompted this particular video came out of a Facebook post that I was reading yesterday. And of course, we still have a lot of protests going on throughout the country. Not so much going on here where I live. In Raleigh, they do tend to have a little bit more going on right now. And the first thing I want to sort of talk about before I start immediately talking about me is just how we make change happen in general. And this is not just about the protests, like we can apply this to anything. And the first piece of that has to do with awareness, right? And so a lot of times we don't even realize that there's an issue going on until we see something on change.org or until somebody shares it on a Facebook post or until there's a boycott or a march or something trending in social media. And so once there's this sort of awareness and people become more accustomed to hearing that this is an issue and that this is something we need to work on, until that happens, we can't move to the piece where we actually start working on it. So in order for change to take place, one, there has to be the awareness that something needs to change, and number two, you have to take the steps to make that change happen. And so in terms of some of the protests that we see going on right now, there's a lot of awareness building, right? We see that with some of the different things that are going on wherever you are in the country. In terms of our health and fitness, it's the same sort of thing. You know, sometimes we're okay, right? Or we think we're okay. And so we show up at the doctor's office and the doctor's just like, you know what? Just got your blood work back and your cholesterol's a little high. And I'm going to make some suggestions about changes you need to make. And so again, two pieces there, right? One was first the awareness. You needed to know that there was an actual issue that was going on with your health. And then number two, you're going to start to take some direct responsibility and action for what you need to do in order to impact your cholesterol level, right? So that sort of raising awareness and then doing the work can apply to anything. Let's get back to what sort of tipped me off that I had some personal sort of issues going on with myself. Like I said, you know, Facebook is one of those places where for good or bad, you can have conversations with people you may need to have conversations with or that you may not need to have conversations with. In any case, I am on a lot of different social media platforms, and there was a particular post a couple of days ago about some of my neighbors being concerned about some of the street names, some of the people's names that were on some of the street signs, and that maybe the history of some of those people were not reflective of the values that our community has in terms of what those people had done in the past and how we recognize the fact that that is not something that is acceptable, and maybe we want to look at changing the street names. And while I am appreciative of people wanting to say, hey, we need to look at the names of some of these people who are on buildings and who are on streets and those sorts of things, I'm totally appreciative of us needing to make a change in that area. But I live in a predominantly white community, and this issue is being raised to some extent by members of our community, and my first gut instinct, my first gut reaction was sarcasm. And it was sarcasm in a way that would not have been respectful of the fact that they were interested in trying to do something. And you know, it's one of those things where if you have to ask yourself if what you're about to post whether or not you need to think about that or rethink that, then you probably shouldn't post it in the way that you're thinking about posting it, right? And I reached out to my sister to ask her thoughts about what I wanted to post, and she was like, no. And she actually said the same thing. She said, you know, if you have to think about it, then you probably have some concern about what it is you're wanting to post. And I did. I mean, but like I said before, it was that like gut reaction to what was posted. And I didn't want to come across, like I said, as being disrespectful of what other people were trying to do. Now, understand that some people might classify what I was doing as taking into account what we're now labeling a little bit more across the board as white fragility. You know, whether it is or not, whether or not I was considering that from that perspective, I'm not really gonna go down that road here, but I do recognize that it gave me some pause because of who I was and how I wanted to reflect what I was feeling and what I was thinking, and whether or not I thought that that was the best way to do it. So let me actually tell you what it was that initially like struck me, and just tell you what it was I was going to post. So like I said before, I live in a predominantly white neighborhood. As much as we are a very diverse city, there are still pockets of the city that are just not that diverse. It's, you know, you can still find some very segregated communities. And some of you might say, well, Sheila, why do you live there then? I wasn't looking at the racial makeup of the city when I moved to this particular neighborhood. I was looking at the amenities. I was trying to find a house where I could walk out the door and go for a run, and that had a lot of parks and amenities because we had a small child. So, and my husband was driving to and from Raleigh for work. And so I wanted to make sure that we had access to highways. I mean, literally that was it, okay? Can we afford it, and does it check these boxes for us? Other than that, I wasn't making any obvious, you know, other boxes that needed to be checked, I guess is what I would say. So the post was about, that I was going to be responding to, the post was about, hey, you know, there's some people in the community that are concerned about some of the names on the street. Is there any sort of systematic plan in place, or is there somebody already working on this, another organization that is looking at this? And is this something we even want to consider, that sort of thing? And what immediately came to me was, oh wow, you know, this is exactly the thing that I've been looking for. This is finally that one thing that is going to help us, you know, decrease poverty in our community. It's really going to help people be able to get, you know, jobs that are going to help them build careers and wealth for their family. You know, at this point, looking at what poverty looks like in our community, I totally believe that changing these street names is finally, again, going to be that one thing that is going to get us on track. And I'm looking forward to using this as a way to, you know, build our education system for our children so that they're all getting a quality education, and we can maybe work on that achievement gap between our predominantly, you know, white schools and our white students versus what we're seeing in the Black community or in the minority communities. This is that thing that's going to do it. So yeah, that's probably not what I needed to post, right? But yeah, that was that was what I was feeling. And you know, one of the ways I sort of judge myself and other people too, on what I'm doing. It's very simple, okay? Is that helpful? And me posting that way would not have been helpful at all. That was just me taking a dig, because I see so much action that I find to be not truly helpful in terms of really impacting and changing people's lives. People who are like really suffering. And when I think about that suffering, street names just don't do it for me. You know, painting the street doesn't do it for me. Names on buildings don't do it for me. And I get it. I'm not discounting the work that needs to go on with those things. I'm just saying I still know people who have just gotten out of jail and are still trying to find a job. And people who are still having a hard time trying to figure out how they're going to pay their rent, especially now when, you know, they're not working. And for me to sort of say, yeah, this is something we need to get behind, or for me to even spend my time and energy on something like that, again, it's just not what people are coming to me about. It's not what people are asking me about. When I start to think about the top 10 things that people consistently on a regular basis say that they are the challenges that they are facing in their lives, that is just not it. And so when I ask, you know, is this helpful? How helpful is this? How is this really going to benefit or change people's lives? I don't see some of the things that we're doing as being those things that people really need. I am around a lot of people who, you know, are giving time and energy. They're spending their own money. They're trying to educate people about, you know, getting out to vote, about how to apply for grants for their businesses now that may be suffering in the economy now. And, you know, those are things that I see as being helpful. And some of these other things, while I can appreciate some people wanting to help with them and seeing those things as something that they can work on, that's probably not where I'm going to put my energy. Yeah. I use health and fitness as a way to keep doing just, you know, community work, political work, whatever you want to call it, because there is a psychological cost that comes with being in an environment where, you know, you understand and see the racial disparities, the economic disparities, the gender disparities, where you see that all the time, you know. I listen to my mom sometimes. She serves as an elected official on her county board of commissioners, and she talks about one of the boards that she's on, and she's just like, I'm the only black person up there. I walk in the room and it's all white men. And, you know, Pitt County is still very rural, even though Greenville, you know, has an urban core because it has the third largest university there that's in the state of North Carolina. But you have to understand what the power structure looks like in a lot of spaces. And in a lot of spaces, the power structure is still driven by green. People like to frame it a lot of different ways, but it's still very much driven by money and connections, who you know, who you've known for years. And that matters. And a lot of times in terms of who we get behind is based on who we know, you know, who we refer jobs to. It's who we know. And when people say that they want to change street names, I'm just like, but how have you worked to build relationships? Because I think that is a harder task to do. It requires more commitment on people's parts, and it's just a bigger psychological investment. You have to be willing to commit to doing that. And I just think we really have to get to a point of recognizing that we continue to still ask a lot of Black people, and especially Black women. And so, you know, when you see me out running 9 miles in the morning, it's because I need a mental break away from all of the other stuff that's going on. So I'm gonna put this out there and hope that people understand a little bit more about what it takes to do work in your community in a way that costs you not even with time and money and stuff, but just from a psychological perspective of having to dig down deep and work with people on issues. And I'll sort of wrap this up. There is always this like more work that you have to do. And it's a struggle sometimes. I need to go for that 9-mile run so that when I have conversations that are tough and challenging, I can pull from the areas of strength within my soul and have a conversation that is helpful and not just sarcastic, okay? And that's sort of where I'm going with that. And I know there are a lot of other people, I've heard my niece say this too, you know, when you're out trying to do things to just try to make your neighborhood better or your community better or your city better, or you're working nationally with an organization and you're trying to do things at a national level to make, you know, policy better, it can be frustrating. It can be overwhelming because you feel like you're just not getting anywhere, and yet you get back up and you do the work again and again. And it's a lot. And so for people who are just seeing this video, there's another video of mine that's a documentary behind the scenes, and another one, A Soulful Democracy, that gives you a little bit more perspective about the same thing that I'm saying here now. So for any of you who are thinking about not voting, or who feel very disenchanted by what you see sometimes, just know that there are other people who are still getting up every day and working to try to make things better. And if you ever feel like there is nothing that you can do, there always is. And if there's nothing else that you choose to do, you can always choose to vote. So hope you like this video. You can subscribe for more. And I think that's it, because my husband just drove back up and he sent me a text earlier after I said I was going to be recording a video. He said he was going to be coming back and mowing the lawn. So he just drove back up. So I think my time for recording my video is fini. Again, don't forget to subscribe. Love you. Peace out.